Good morning, Commissioners. If I could have the PowerPoint, please. Thank you. So, Commissioners, we're in year 2 of the 2017 to 21 plan, and today we'll present to you the objectives that we're planning on launching or have been launched in the second quarter of 2018. 20,000-foot overview of our strategic plan is we have 5 broad goals you see listed on the left-hand side of the screen. We further break those down into 26 strategies, and then finally 146 objectives that are designed to be very specific and measurable. Of the objectives that we have within the plan itself, in 2017 we did launch on 76 of those objectives, or about half of the objectives in the plan itself. We've targeted 43 in 2018, or 30% of those. Then the remainder will be completed in 2019 to 21. I do want to emphasize we say launch. There are many of these are multi-year objectives that'll take the entire 5 years to complete, but certainly launch is an important date and moves us forward with those respective objectives. In regards to 2018, as I indicated earlier, we identified 43 that we plan on launching in 2018. We presented 10 of those to you in our first quarter update. We have 10 today that we'll be presenting to you as well. So that'll leave us 23 that will be back to you either in October or January to present those to you as well. But I think we're on track certainly to do that, and thanks to all the staff for their hard work in this particular area. Any questions of me on kind of the global overview?
No.
If not, we'll move on then to goal number 1, strategy D, objective 1, and Terry Franklin, Sheriff's Office, is presenting.
Good morning. I don't think as many times as I do this, if I did it every week, that I still would feel like I have to throw up every time I have to come up here.
That's the way we feel listening to you as well. No, I'm kidding.
They're lighting the mood now.
So the sheriff was a little preoccupied when I tried to speak with him about some of these things on his agenda items, but he has 5 strategic plans that he has for his office over the next second term, God willing, come November. One of which is the continuing to combat the illegal marijuana grows in the county. The Sheriff's Office is collaborating with a number of other agencies with regard to making sure that people aren't coming into the county illegally or leaving the county illegally or making a lot of money illegally with regard to illegal marijuana grows. In addition to growing it and selling it within the county, the attempts to transport it across state lines is a big issue. The homeless outreach team, the HOT team that is currently staffed by CSPD, the Sheriff's Office is planning to add an FTE to that team in a collaborative effort to assist with the homeless population in the county as a minor addition to what is also going on to help the homeless in the county. I'm sure you all know the co-responder units have launched July 1st. I almost said September. July 1st, it was a rush to the end to get through that first state's fiscal year and make sure that the program was up and running. But we have a wonderful deputy and a clinician from Memorial Hospital who are working 4 10-hour days right now in the times of day and the days of the week that most of the emergency calls come in for check the welfare, suicide, suspicious situations where the attempt is to keep people out of the hospital, out of jail, and to assist them in place, meaning even if we have to transport them to a walk-in clinic or simply take them home, we're anxious to see what the outcomes will be with that co-responder unit on full-time. Recently, quite a while ago, the Sheriff's Office Media Services Department filmed in collaboration with the 4th Judicial District Problem-Solving Courts a video outlining the opportunities for inmates and what the problem-solving courts might have to offer in terms of their treatment and becoming productive community members again. Unfortunately, we're in the RFP process for new TVs at the jail, so we haven't been able to roll that out. But the video is completed, and it is a combination of efforts by the problem-solving court judges, magistrates, probation officers, the sheriff's office, the people at the jail, and even had some graduates on the video talking about how the problem-solving courts helped them get their lives back on track. I guess I'm...
Commissioner
continuing
Vanderwerth
on.
has a question here.
Yes.
Yeah, back to the previous goal. I know that the sheriff has from time to time come to see us to talk about how many illegal marijuana grows have been addressed. And, you know, I think there's a building number of statistics that, you know, he's probably can talk to. I don't know if he's planning on coming again in the next couple of months, but I think I'd like to hear that again. Just, you know, how many times they've taken out an illegal marijuana grow in El Paso County. And there's no rush, just sometime in the summer here, I'd be interested in hearing that again. And then also for the hot team, adding the FTE, do you have a date? Like, is that like imminent, or is it several months away?
It's imminent. It
Okay.
may have already happened.
Okay, great. Whoever that is, I'd be interested in knowing, you know, the name of that person and starting to interact with them. And just one last thing about illegal marijuana grows. You know, there was a house about 4 houses away from my house that owned by a military guy. He PCS'd away and rented the house out, and it turns out who he rented to were people that were growing marijuana inside the house. So he finally discovered that, and the sheriff's office was part of addressing this issue. That person, that they left and they vacated the house, but now this military person who owns the house is going through a very, very expensive remediation process on the house because the grow, the smell, the odor, it permeates the drywall, the ceiling tiles, the carpets, and they're literally pulling all of this stuff out of the house in order to get the odor out of that house. So I'm just amazed at how damaging this kind of an operation is to a home. And I just I feel for that guy who PCS'd away as an Army soldier and now has to pay those kinds of bills. But my thanks to the sheriff's office for actually discovering this. I think they did that in concert with the city police and getting those people kicked out of that house. And it was an illegal grow. They exceeded the number of plants they were allowed to grow in there.
It is incredibly expensive. I am familiar with a...
Pull that microphone a little.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm familiar with a specific case in the Black Forest, a very expensive home where the couple that owned it lived across the country and hired a property manager to rent and monitor the renters in the home. Where fault lies with this, I don't know, but in fact, the renters had a huge marijuana in that home as well and caused a huge amount of damage. It ended up in a lawsuit where the property owners sued the property manager because she was alleged not to have complied with her obligations with regard to monitoring the renters. And so the sheriff is very aware of the damage that it causes, but I'm sure he would be happy to come and address just how the positive outcomes that they've had in tracking the marijuana grows in collaboration, of course, with the DEA, VNI. And sometimes there are dangerous situations where we have to employ SWAT, and sometimes there are situations that don't even realize there are marijuana grows until you get in a house on something completely unrelated. But thank you. I think the wildfires have already been addressed. The co-responder unit, in fact, is also collaborating with all the fire chiefs because it's a cross-jurisdictional effort to supply providers and information to the mental health community. But the wildfires, in addition, you know, our fire chief, well, our fire marshal just retired after a long, productive tenure with the sheriff's office. But always there's collaboration to monitor, and I think based on what we learned in Waldo and Black Forest fires is to mitigate ahead of time instead of mitigating after the fact, to be in contact with homeowners at community events to tell them how they can take care of their own property in the event of a fire. But there's always that danger this time of year, and this particular weather pattern is pretty nasty.
Commissioner Olson.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And I think one of the things that, in both of the after-action reports we saw in Waldo Canyon and Black Forest Fire, that hopefully is going to be, I think, increasing in its robust ability to have that fusion of regional communication, how to quickly, easily, and efficiently get a hold of other jurisdictions, other fire districts, and to be able to communicate back and forth. I think that's one of the critical things that we see, not only in El Paso County, but other counties and across the nation as well. Just people are saying, I serve on the Governor's Homeland Security Advisory Council, and I was up in Denver yesterday, and we were just talking about the numerous fires that are going on in the state of Colorado. And when you have to have those memorandums of understanding in place so that you have agreements between other fire jurisdictions, other counties, other states, it's important to have a way to really quickly, easily, and efficiently communicate with them. And I'm glad you guys are really just looking at that and stepping up your game on that, because I think we're a leader. We can be a leader in that.
And that's a great segue into number 7. Oh, wait, sorry, I got ahead of myself. But there is a multi-agency collaboration right now, and it has to do with our dispatch unit, the combination of all the different law enforcement agencies into a single dispatch authority. It keeps the conciseness of the area more reliable, where you don't have multiple calls coming in from multiple jurisdictions about multiple situations and nobody knows the right place to go. So absolutely, that sharing of information is critical. Number 7 is about the record management system. A number of our local law enforcement partners use the same record management system, so it allows us to communicate very quickly and to share information. It keeps officers more safe. It keeps the community more safe. It keeps the public more informed about what's going on, and a quicker response to sharing of information. I think that's all for me right now. Anything else? Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much. See, that wasn't so bad.
It was.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm not going to read off the slide. I think you can see that very clearly. The one thing I do want to bring up to you is the replacement of the Ellicott Bridge. That's been ongoing, and they've done a great job. I think folks were a little upset with the version that we had, but I think they're good to go. And in the West Side Avenue Action Plan, which you get updates, I think, periodically, our chief engineer on that is talking about retiring. So, of course, right towards the end, right? So let's just throw another thing at this, a curveball at this. And you also approved additional money because you never know what you're going to find until you start breaking up the road and things like that. So that's going very well. Next slide, Tim. And then the crews, we help with the National Cemetery by shouldering approximately 3 miles of running road. So we were able to assist in part of that. One thing I do want to say real quickly is Tim stands up here every time we give an update and thanks us for our efforts in this. I want to thank Mr. Wolkin personally for the efforts that he does in putting this together and making sure that we're all staying on track and staying on time. So thank you. If you have any questions for me.
Any questions? No?
Thank you.
Very good.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Eckhart with IT. Happy to report this morning on the smooth, successful launch of our Citizen Connect application back in March. This is a mobile app for citizens to report service requests, DOT and parks. To date, the system has processed 1,700 requests for transportation, public works, and 139 for parks. Enhancements in the future include adding the ability to report ADA issues or concerns by citizens. We've also had some recent conversations with the City of Fountain on interest in integrating this application with some of their back-end systems. Can I answer any questions about this for you?
Commissioner Vanderwood.
Just as a refresher, this is the system that, depending on jurisdiction, pushes it to the right, public
correct.
agency, right? So if it's a city jurisdiction issue, it will go there, or if it's county or whatever.
Mostly using the GPS on your phone to determine which jurisdiction you're in and then route that request appropriately.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Very good. You giving a sports update?
None today. Thank you very much. Craig Dossey, Planning Community Development. Commissioner Littleton, I believe you were on the group that drafted this goal or this strategy. I'll be honest with you, when we drafted it, I was kind of thinking, how in the world am I going to get this done? It talks about working with other jurisdictions in the land use realm to try to come to some sense of similarity in some of the regulations or processing. I think the way that we've gone about it is probably as good as we're going to get, because it's very challenging when you have a statutory county and home rule cities involved. The regulations inherently are very different. But I'm happy to report that I have been meeting with all of the planning officials from all the municipalities, those that are willing to participate, quarterly. A result of those meetings has been discussions of a lot of very active areas of interest, things like affordable housing, tiny homes, homeless camping. The thing that's always there is development application processing, as well as some of the regional planning efforts. Particularly in that realm, the county's water master plan and the City of Colorado Springs comprehensive plan. The issues like tiny homes and affordable housing and homeless camps, those aren't unique to just the county. Obviously, that's spilling over into the incorporated cities as well. On those fronts, I don't know that we have the solutions yet, but we've shared a lot of information. We've provided the city with our tiny house regulations. I think they're looking at doing something very similar. Kind of conversely, we've received a copy of the city's small lot PUD regulations. And this is something that I think really could help in the area of affordable housing, particularly in the unincorporated areas of the county. We have already engaged the HBA to set up a group to talk about what a small lot PUD in the county might look like. So we're already going down that road. Another area where we've seen some collaboration is actually through the water master planning process. We're looking at modifying some of our landscaping standards to better emulate or at least work with some of the standards that the municipalities have. And in some ways, they're further out in front of that than we are, because they also provide the water associated with irrigating that landscaping, whereas the county does not. We have over 50 water providers in the county. So I'm happy to report we've made a lot of progress. I think you're going to see a lot of code changes come forward as a result of these meetings, but it's my plan to continue to hold these quarterly meetings with all the regional planning officials. Any questions for me?
Commissioner Vanderworth.
Yeah, I think it's a worthy goal, and I just, perhaps you said it and I missed it, about establishing a reoccurring quarterly meeting with planning officials. So that is ongoing,
That is ongoing, yes.
and that has been ongoing, I guess, maybe since 2017, since the goal was established or something, right?
Yeah, towards the end of 2017.
Okay, and I don't need specific names, but is that at your level that those meetings take place, or are they planning staff level, or
Each
or
of the planning directors for those municipalities have been invited to those meetings. We've received, I would say, majority participation. It's always interesting because we're all dealing with different dynamics. When you compare Monument to Fountain and Manitou to El Paso County, very different dynamics from a land use standpoint, but also from a political standpoint. So we have received very good participation in that. I think we, as the county, relate to all of them. They may not relate necessarily to each other, but we're kind of the glue that binds all of those various jurisdictions. And so to answer your question, yeah, it is at my level, but we've also brought in other staff that report to us on topical areas to talk about some of those areas.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, great job. Commissioner Littleton.
Thanks. Just a comment. Craig, I just want to thank you guys. I mean, over the, 7.5 years that I've been here, I mean, we have really kind of moved forward with reducing barriers to business, making sure that we do common sense solutions when we are able to do so. Like you said, trying to work with the different, city governments who are home rule, because what we've really tried to do is that whether people build on this side of a road or that side of a road, depending on whether it's city or county, that we have similar types of rules and regulations and processes and procedures so that people don't have to guess. And so I want to really just thank you guys for trying to strive towards that, even though it's not going to necessarily meet on every single, I dotted and T crossed being the same policies and procedures. But I want to thank you for continuing to push that forwards to make it common sense for people who want to put on a deck, not knowing whether they're, going to have to follow these rules or those rules, and really having a very streamlined checklist of what people need to do when they come in for updating and/or new construction. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I will say there is an appetite for the same sentiment in the municipalities as well. I think it's a varied level of interest, but I think there is an appetite for that. Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Thank you.
Great job.
Good morning, Commissioners. This one. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here to talk about goal number 4, consistently support regional economic growth. Strategy A specifically, support the expansion of emerging industries in the Pikes Peak region. At the Small Business Development Center a year and a half ago, we were accredited in technology, and we've named that program SBDC TechSource. Across the state, we have 4 hubs for technology, and here in the Pikes Peak region, we are the cybersecurity small business education hub for the state of Colorado network as well. So in the area of emerging industries in cybersecurity, we are here to help grow businesses in the cybersecurity area, if that's the area of work that they're in, and also assist small businesses in cybersecurity education. So the Cyber CYA program, or Cyber Cover Your Assets program, we have fun with our names, really focuses on a number of areas, and most recently, of course, the NIST standards and technology and the General Data Protection Regulation of the EU, both deadlines that have passed for small businesses and ones that we are continuing to educate. We also have been providing, under the strategy, on-site workshops, webinar, and statewide programming. For example, on July 31st, I'll be in Aurora on a full-day cybersecurity summit. We have a number of partners. Department of Homeland Security was named as a partner of the Small Business Development Center Network across the nation last year through a House and Senate bill that was passed, HR 5064. There's a number of different bills and amendments going on with that now, but Department of Homeland Security, National Cyber Center, the Better Business Bureau, Colorado Procurement Technical Assistance Center, the Bachelors of Innovation Program, Pikes Peak Community College, City Colorado Springs, and the SBA are all major partners of ours on this program. And then in the area of creatives, which is also considered an emerging industry for the SBDC network, we are continuing to provide courses for creatives with the Pikes Peak Arts Council and the Colorado Creative Industries.
Question here, Commissioner Littleton.
Before you move forward, Hikta, it might be recommended, like you did with, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and put in parentheses NIST.
Yeah.
It might be recommended in the beginning too to do Cyber Cover Your Assets parentheses CYA program, so people know
Yes,
exactly
ma'am.
what that is.
Yes, ma'am, we'll do that.
We don't want you to be misunderstood, Hikta.
Right.
Commissioner Vander.
Appreciate it.
And notwithstanding whatever was said there that I didn't get, what is the relationship with NIST? What are you doing with them?
Well, what we do is we teach the NIST standards throughout our awareness programming. So for example, we're starting an 8-week cyber awareness training session starting tomorrow night with 7 businesses that we've recruited. Everything that we teach are to those guidelines of the NIST standards and with NIST. And there's a national partnership with them as well they provide us with a lot of information on how to teach it.
Thank you.
And additional with the government contracting compliance regulations, we have a couple of experts that are teaching the NIST compliance. They use a checklist, they talk with businesses on what they need to do, what they haven't done, and how they can make sure that by the end of the year, they don't have, that they have everything in place. Okay. And then, continuing to support the expansion of emerging industries in the Pikes Peak region, we've been a part of a number of technology events within the region and throughout the state. There's been an accelerator at Catalyst Campus on terrestrial weather with the Air Force Research Lab. Our Boulder SBDC and the Pikes Peak SBDC are combining forces to support the second accelerator starting in October on position navigation and timing with the Air Force Research Lab. I was at the Aerospace and Defense Small Industry Day at Jefferson County, and then the Small Business Development Center and Colorado Business Development Foundation, our 501c3, is holding a NASA event and how to work with NASA in November. We have expanded our reach throughout the region. We are still at Tri-Lakes Chamber with the satellite office. We have now signed an MOU with the Pikes Peak Library District and are at Sand Creek Library and have just started Fort Carson hours as of last week as well to serve our transitioning military. Any questions?
Questions? No?
Good morning, Commissioners. Deanne McCann with Economic Development. And I just wanted to let Terry know from the Sheriff's Office that in the future we'll try to have bags up here, and if you all need them there, we can bring those as we feel like we might be throwing up. Let's see. Could I get the next? Oh, no, this is my slide. Under this particular goal, we have another strategy, which is really to support the revitalization of existing business districts. Recently, the federal Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was enacted, which included the creation of opportunity zones. Each governor was allowed to designate so many eligible census tracts that then would be eligible for investments from opportunity funds that are really coming from excess capital gains taxes from individuals who have incurred that particular tax liability. In El Paso County, we actually received designation for 7 census tracts. We worked with both the cities of Fountain and Colorado Springs and unincorporated El Paso County. Those were the areas that had eligible census tracts. So we working with those 2 cities, we requested designation of so many census tracts from the governor. He made those requests then to the Treasury, and we now have 7 census tracts that are eligible. Included in that is downtown Colorado Springs Business District. We anticipate, or hopeful anyway, that there will be some additional investment from these opportunity funds. The state recently held a little summit where we're talking about how best to present the opportunities to potential investors. We'll see some activity, I think, going forward in that. And then this little blue area up here, recently we added to the enterprise zone, Census Tract 34, which, as you can see, really is pretty much western El Paso County as you go up Ute Pass, and that little squiggly line there is actually the COG. One of the reasons we asked for the inclusion of this census tract was to allow for, hopefully, to encourage the reopening of the COG. Every business now that's located in that blue area will be eligible for state income tax credits for a variety of activities. The largest one we see is the investment tax credit. So any investments into equipment, businesses are eligible for a 3% investment tax credit. It was sort of exciting to see when I looked at the census tract that not only the COG's there, but the North Pole is there, Cave of the Winds, all of Green Mountain Falls. So Green Mountain Falls and Manitou, obviously their little business districts will be significantly impacted with this addition, or at least it's our hope that it will. Green Mountain Falls was very receptive to the idea, and obviously Manitou as well. Finally, we had
Question
another.
here,
Oh, yes,
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
please.
Yes, I imagine that for both Green Mountain Falls and Manitou Springs, you were working with the city council and town councils on those. But is it official? Is it really official today that we have that enterprise zone, the part in blue?
Yes.
Okay. And have we gone, you may have done this, I'm just trying to confirm, have you gone back to those municipalities and officially informed them of that?
I think so. I believe I have. I'll have to check. I can't. I believe so,
I
yes.
tell you why I'm asking the question is maybe for me to go to the 2 council meetings and, make it official, let them make sure they know. They may know it, but this would be something that would be on their public record, that it's in fact in place.
I will verify then, and then will you be visiting with those city councils? Is that,
Yeah.
okay, perfect.
All right, great.
Another objective in here, participate in feasibility studies of rail and freight opportunities. Just recently, you all actually approved a memorandum of understanding with jurisdictions as well as a private landowner to undertake the next phase of that study, and that is in process now. Any questions on that? Thank you all.
Good.
I'm not really feeling any better. So this is to discuss the collaborative efforts with regard to keeping the community safe, secure, resilient. I think we spoke a little bit earlier about addressing the cleanup situation, and maybe that's a good point to bring up with the sheriff about educating the public on the costs of cleanup and, if you see something, say something kind of situation. Not too long ago, the sheriff's office merged with Fountain, Manitou, Monument, Palmer Lake, Green Mountain Falls, and Calhan police departments, and we're now in a centralized dispatch location. So one group of dispatchers takes calls for all of those agencies and dispatches emergency services to all of those agencies. So that really does create less chance of confusion. In the past, there have been multiple calls coming in where everybody just slightly misinterprets where they are or where the emergency is, and so you have multiple jurisdictional response services showing up for the same thing, and hopefully one of them gets to the right place. CSPD still currently dispatches from their own agency, but we're still pushing them to maybe from a single unit at one point, dispatch all emergency calls out of that single unit. With regard to training, the Sheriff's Office hosts a number of trainings every year. The one that comes to my mind the most with regard to the co-responder, I guess, because we just started that, is the mental health first aid, where deputies are trained to, and police officers too, trained to be able to understand the difference between substance abuse, true mental illness, and mental disorder, and maybe the help with this new co-responder unit will address that even more. I know in the past there's been efforts to create a regional training facility where all law enforcement could be consistently trained with regard to law enforcement practices and standards, and I think that's still on everybody's radar. We just haven't been able to come up with a plan to make that happen for sure. I checked with the sheriff with regard to the evidence facility down by the jail. Currently, that only houses the county sheriff's office evidence. Every agency still independently houses their own evidence facility, but everybody is in agreement that a single place to store evidence would be more efficient in dispatching evidence when necessary for trial. It'd be a one access for the district attorney's office to gain access to that evidence. And we will continue to collaborate with our partners with regard to the court. We consistently collaborate with the court now, and they're very engaged in targeting some of these smaller populations that exist in the jail that are resource demands like just regular housing of a typical inmate wouldn't be. And we're trying to collaborate with the problem-solving courts, the probation department, other law enforcement agencies, Department of Human Services, different providers, so that we can independently analyze what's going on with these target populations and help them in addition to reducing the number of people held in the jail. Questions?
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, on number 2, I've got some constituents that live up in the Loy Creek Road area, and they're actually closer to the Woodland Park Emergency Services. So I think this is great that we have, a more centralized kind of communications office for 911 calls. But this person has expressed to me in the past where they had dialed 911 and there was confusion behind the scenes as to who was going to go up to respond to that call, and it ended up taking quite some time. So a couple of questions here. First off is, it says it's all being dispatched now, but when was that started? Was that in 18 or 17 or?
It was in 17, maybe even 16, when
okay.
it finally merged.
Yeah, what I want to try and do is establish if that confusion took place before this central communications office was created, because this could be maybe the way that wouldn't happen again.
And sometimes it's those jurisdictional lines that
There was
create,
a challenge
if they're
there,
close
yeah,
to
between
one or
Teller
the
County
other.
and El Paso County, and who went, which emergency service, which ambulance, which law enforcement, and it ended up not working right. So in that case.
And we're aware it's not going to solve all of the problems all of the times.
Yeah.
But hopefully it will address some of these multiple calls to multiple agencies now that there is a single dispatch area. But again, not making excuses. Sometimes it's difficult with regard to which jurisdiction should have it. And sometimes they're able to take a call that doesn't necessarily end up being their call and then realize we need to hand this off to a different jurisdiction, and that might be something to look at too in the future when they're along those close lines.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, I just want, actually, on that particular point, maybe just talk about it a little bit
Absolutely.
more later.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I could for just a second, I heard your question and I wanted to provide an answer with some additional information, not specific to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, but specific to the El Paso Teller 911 Authority. And the really good news I have for you is that just recently, both Verizon and AT&T completed the upgrade of facilities and technology so that the calls made from cell phones are in fact routed by GPS identity to the correct dispatch center. Ergo, the call that should go to the Woodland Park dispatch center will go there. The call that should go to the Cripple Creek dispatch center will go there. That's not a 100% answer, but it's a significant improvement. Just wanted to share that information.
Good morning, Commissioners. Julie Crow, Executive Director of DHS. I am here to talk about Goal 5, which is related to exploring a contract for a child care center at the Citizen Services Center. This would be for obviously all employees at the Citizen Service Center, not just DHS employees. So after considering licensing requirements by the state, which are quite restrictive, requiring square foot per child and outdoor safe play space, et cetera, as well as some safety issues at the Citizen Services Center that we experience at the center, we decided that a more reasonable option in terms of cost and safety of children and staff would be to look at developing a network of quality licensed child care centers near the Citizen Services Center that were private homes, but they would be licensed and quality rated. The state has a rating system called Colorado Shines, and they rate early childhood centers that are licensed 1 to 5. So we would be looking at 3, 4s, and 5s at least for those those homes in the community. I consulted with 3 experts, Diane Price, Noreen Landis Tyson, and also Jackie Florendo from Alliance for Kids, about what it would be like to have a network of homes near the Citizen Services Center. And they recommended that we start with a survey to see would our staff use a network of high-quality homes if they were located near the center. And they also suggested that it would be important to look at location of existing homes and if there is indeed what we call a child care desert. So we did conduct a survey in April. There were 189 responses to the survey, and we asked staff from the entire building at Citizen Services Center. 70.8% responded yes or maybe that they would use a network of licensed, high-quality, family-based child care homes if they were near the Citizen Services Center. So the vast majority would. A slightly higher percentage would have preferred a licensed facility in the building. And their primary consideration for whether they would use either a center or the homes was actually cost, as well as licensing and safety issues, which we would work with. And so I worked with the 3 experts that I mentioned to look at what exists already near the Citizen Services Center. And you see broke down by zip code the results of looking at what we currently have. Now, I will say that the majority of these homes are full or may have 1 or 2 openings. And so what we would really need to do, based on the information from our experts, is engage in a pretty significant recruitment effort to improve the number of homes that are located near the Citizen Services Center. So we're in that process. Jackie Florendo actually has a grant that allows her to focus currently on some recruitment efforts, and she agreed to focus on these 3 zip codes as part of that grant to see what they can do with the existing funds to improve the number of centers near Citizen, or the number of licensed homes near Citizen Services Center. So some of our next steps are to survey the homes, engage their interest, to hold some open houses and conversations, make phone calls, determine what should be in a network of services. And what I mean by a network of services is some licensed child care homes don't like to do the back office billing or the accounting or some of the business sort of activities that come with being a licensed child care home. So we think that we may be able to improve the number of homes in that area by partnering with some expert to develop a network of services that would help those local, very small businesses get up and running in our community. We also are working with Elaine Johnson around understanding whether we would need to have any funding, whether we would need to have a procurement process with Eileen related to a network of homes. And we're working on a plan and a timeline. Concurrently, we wanted to make sure that there was a resource for our employees right now. And so we have provided the 877-338-2273 number and the Child Care Resource and Referral website to the Citizen Services Center employees. Those are statewide resources to help people find high-quality child care. And one thing that I've made clear to our employees is that the county wouldn't be able to pay for their child care because there was some confusion about that, but we would be able to maybe help support a network of homes in terms of some business development and recruitment and outreach and that sort of thing. But providing a resource to one employee to pay for child care wouldn't be possible when we didn't provide that same resource to everyone. And it's also very costly. Child care is upwards of $1,200 to $1,700 a month for licensed quality homes. And employees understand that. They appreciate this effort. I also presented it at our all-staff meeting yesterday with several hundred employees. And so that's where we are with this initiative. Do you have any questions?
Questions? No, great job.
Thank you so much, Commissioners.
Commissioners, that finalizes our report for second quarter objectives. We'll be back before you in October with third quarter.
All Commissioner Littleton.
Tim, I just, again, can't thank you enough for, just being on top of this, and for our president for having this quarterly report. It's really critical that the citizens know what's going on, and we have that accountability, because there's no accountability in things you don't measure. And to know that we're moving forward on that, I think is critical. I would encourage, I know with our new website, it's really difficult to find El Paso County's strategic plan. Even when you do the find button, it finds 20 other plans before it ever gets to ours. And I think that possibly I might recommend that just on the homepage where the pictures are scrolling across the top of it, that there just be a button that just, says El Paso County Strategic Plan. It links immediately to it. And once you open that, if you want to go to the strategic plan for the PDF, it takes a long time to load. So possibly we can help that become a little more robust as well and quick. Because I think it's really critical for citizens to see that we actually have a plan, we follow our plan, and we make sure we expend dollars in those things that we've said that are important to us. So thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other